6, we're back again. Kristi and Katie, your crime time friends. Stories, justice, laughs collide. True Crime Squad, come join the ride. Grab the clues, let's take a stand. For victims' voices, hand in hand. True Crime Squad, it's time to shine. Season 6, your turn, your time. True Crime Squad, where justice meets hilarity.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the True Crime Squad. This is Katie Weaver. I'm here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Kristi Brower. Hello.
Hello. Hey everybody.
Well, I'd ask you how it's going, but I already know. But
I'm a Grammy.
yep.
Our baby was born today. Our baby was born this morning at 10:55. She was 7.7 pounds 2 ounces and 19 inches long.
Yeah.
And just perfect.
Perfectly
Her
perfect.
mama only pushed 3 times.
Yeah.
It was a super easy birth, which was really cool. So yeah.
Well, we were
Everybody's
joking on the
doing
show
great.
with the chatters last night that maybe going bowling was going to put her into labor before she even went and got induced, and indeed it did.
It did. In fact, she had contractions all the way through bowling. By the way, she took 4th place.
Good
in
job,
spite
Jerica.
of being
Yes.
in labor. Yeah, I know.
What a baddie.
I know. Rhonda's like, that's the coolest story you'll be able to tell Lily her whole life.
Yeah.
Like, just so funny.
Oh, I love it. Well, very exciting. I cannot wait to meet her. Super
Yes.
exciting stuff.
Yeah. If you want to see a picture of her, we're not sharing pictures publicly, but I did put one up in our Discord.
Yeah.
So that's where you can see that. Mom and Dad are pretty sensitive to having any pictures out on social media, so we won't be putting any up.
Sure. Yeah.
But if it's in a closed group like that, then they're okay with it.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
The
Yeah,
next
it's
generation of babies in our family.
Right? It still hasn't even quite set in to me. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I have a grandchild. I'm 49 years old and I have a grandbaby. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I am old as hell.
Well, I didn't want to say anything because
And my son is absolutely over the moon. He's walking around carrying her, singing to her, making up dumb little songs and singing to her. It's so sweet.
oh,
It's very sweet.
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's really cute.
Well, we have had quite the day. We had Detective Duncan
Quite
on the stand
the day.
all day.
Yes.
Something happened at the very end. I cut our feed too soon. Court TV started to cut their feed, so I cut ours because, well, that's what you do. And then they came back. So we missed a few minutes that was really super important. So what we decided to do is eat dessert first tonight. So we're going to air that first because it's all anyone's talking about at this moment. And then we'll talk about what happened all day. But what you need to know is right before this, right before court seemed to be ending, is that the state rested. So we thought that she had at least one more witness after Duncan, and she rested. So that was the big story, but let's watch the rest of this. I did cut this a little bit. There was a very long delay while Lori was conferring with her counsel. I didn't think we needed to sit through all of that, so we're going to start right when she comes back.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to address a Rule 20 motion first.
Go ahead.
Okay. The state has failed to show substantial evidence for count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree premeditated murder. The state has provided no evidence that I agreed with another person that any one of us would engage in certain conduct that I intended to promote or assist in this premeditated murder. Crime premeditated murder requires the state to establish a person caused the death of another with premeditation. The lack of evidence to show any evidence of a conspiracy to commit murder. There was no plan to murder Charles. No evidence has showed
None.
that, in fact, evidence suggested self-defense on the part of Alex. So I would like to put that on the record.
All right. State want to put a response on the record?
Yes, Your Honor. Looking at the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, there's sufficient evidence based upon everything from the iCloud messages from between Alex, the defendant, and others leading up to July 11th of 2019, that Alex Cox was invited over by this defendant, knowing that they were going to be having an intervention and knowing when Charles would be there and bringing a handgun over with him. The timelines on July 11th of the killing of Charles Vallow and the fact that the number of shots and the physical evidence at the scene, the statements by the defendant to Detective N. Clan that she took Charles Vallow's phone and would not give it back to him, the motive for money, and especially the defendant's motive for having an affair with Chad Daybell, all of those looking at together in the light most favorable to the state, the defendant or the jury could find the defendant guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
Last word. Do you want to add anything?
No, Your Honor.
All right. The standard is whether or not a reasonable juror could, whether or not there's substantial evidence for a reasonable juror to find the defendant guilty. The court does find that there is substantial evidence that a reasonable juror could find the defendant guilty. The court will further add that the jurors are the ones who judge the credibility of the witnesses, and it's ordered denying the Rule 20 motion. Are you going to present evidence tomorrow, either through witnesses or through your own testimony?
No, Your Honor, the defense will rest.
All right, if that's the case, I'm going to tell the jury. How long does the state anticipate its closing argument being?
I would assume probably over an hour.
How about the defense?
Less than that.
Can we do the closings at 1 p.m.? We can formalize all the jury instructions at 10:30.
Your Honor,
Is that enough time?
the state would request that we do them Monday to ensure that the state would request we do closings Monday to ensure that we don't finish with a rebuttal closing on Monday.
Well, I'm willing to go in the morning if we want to start in the morning at 11 and do jury instructions at 10:15 or something like that. Does that work?
Again, I'm asking for Monday, but if the court does not allow that, then we'll go whenever the court says tomorrow.
Do you want to weigh in?
Well, just that we haven't had time to go over the jury instructions. I don't get back to the jail until like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, so
You agree then that Monday's better?
I would agree.
All right, we'll tell the jury to report at 10:30 a.m. on Monday. They don't have to come in tomorrow.
Judge, could we have the defendant rest in front of the jury before they leave today?
Are you prepared to rest today? If you rest, that means you can't change your mind about testifying.
Can we do it on Monday?
We can do that on Monday, but if you change your mind, I need to know in advance because it's going to change the jury instructions and it's going to change the schedule.
Absolutely, I will let you know.
All right. Tell the jury they don't need to report on tomorrow, that they need to report Monday at 10:30 a.m. Okay? So let's meet tomorrow, though, to finalize the jury instructions. Why don't we just do that at, what's tomorrow, Thursday?
10:30?
We'll just do it at 10:30. That'll be enough time for you to read those tonight.
Yeah, if I could have time to meet with my advisory council before that, that would be great.
I can put
If
it
I
on the
can be
calendar.
brought in.
I can put it on the calendar for 10 and I think well,
11?
I can put it on the calendar for 10 so you can meet with them back here and then we'll meet at about 10:45. We'll have come in the courtroom and finalize the jury instructions. All right? If I did give a copy to your advisory councils as well, or at least one copy there. So if the advisory councils and or the state review that tonight and see something additional or correction that needs to be made, go ahead and give me a heads up so I can be prepared to talk about it tomorrow as well. So, all right, we'll see everyone in court at 10:45, but we'll put it on the calendar for 10 a.m. so that the defendant can meet with her advisory councils at 10 a.m. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Well, wow.
So first off, I don't know if that'll be streamed tomorrow or not. If it is, we'll stream it. We don't know. We'll just keep an eye on it. It's not going to be that exciting. It's just jury
They've
instructions.
done quite a few things that they have not streamed. They've talked
hmm
about some hearings that they've had that we know we did not see.
Yeah.
So,
So we're not sure on that, but everyone's in town for it, so we'll see. So we'll stream it if we can. But what we're going to do tomorrow is our regularly scheduled Thursday 3 p.m. live,
mhm.
because there's this case that's been playing out here in Idaho that started like just as Lori's trial started, and we just couldn't shoulder both, that we've been
Yeah.
dying to bring you guys. So we're going to do
It
that
is
tomorrow
from our
at 3.
area.
From our
Yeah.
area. Yep. And I promise you guys want to hear it.
It's Victor Perez. If any of you are following it, it's hit the national news, so you may
Mhm.
have seen it.
Yeah. Noticing that the storm is in the chat. Thank you for the super chat. Okay, the
Thanks for
storm
being
just kills
here.
me. They left a super chat and said, "I started this and now finished it. Loin fire."
Oh my God. When I started seeing the James and Elena texts coming up today, I was like, oh no. We don't have
I
to listen to this shit again, do we?
Poor Duncan. Poor Duncan. So, well, I guess let's talk about this first and then we'll really get into what happened today. But yes, so Lori says she's resting. So, but she didn't rest in front of the jury, so it's not official. There is a chance that between now and Monday she could change her mind and decide that she is going to put herself on the stand. I kind of doubt it at this point, but the
I don't
judge
know,
certainly
man.
left the door open. He could have called the jury back in at that time and let her rest in front of the jury, and he did not. So,
Well, but that's not what she wanted. And I think he's been very, very
mhm,
careful to
yeah,
make sure that she is getting all of her rights respected, because ain't nobody want to do this again.
God, no. No, 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 no. And, she does like to stir shit up and do things her way, so who knows?
Yeah.
Well, tomorrow, and yeah, with the right jury instructions, but she could still do it. She could still pull a 180 on the judge and do that on Monday if she
She
wants
could just,
to.
if she doesn't rest in front of the judge or in front of the jury until Monday, he
hmm
can't stop her.
No.
But Jesus Christ, woman, have you not done enough damage to yourself already in
Oh,
this
well,
trial? But
today was really, really something. So
it
poor
was.
Detective Duncan. As you know, he was supposed to be on the stand yesterday, but he was sick. And so that's why court got out a little bit early yesterday. And he was here today, thank goodness. But the judge made a joke with him before they started that if he was going to throw up, to try and turn a different direction away from him. And then, of
Oh
course,
no.
he was on the stand the entire day.
Oh, he looked like he was ready to fall to the floor by the end of
hmm
it too. He did not look like he felt well.
He didn't. What a trooper. I mean, and if you don't know, because I know some of you guys are a little newer to this case, this is the third time we have heard from Detective Duncan. He testified in Lori's trial and in Chad's, and then again today. And we'll have him
And
again with Brandon
yeah,
Boudreaux.
he'll be there in Brandon's trial too. Yeah, like
hmm
holy shit, this poor man. Okay, I gotta take these off because I'm afraid it's hitting my mic.
Oh, can't be clutching those pearls today.
Well, I'll just hold them up if I need to.
Yeah. So they start out basically going through the whole crime scene again. It wasn't really anything we hadn't already heard, just talking about when he got there, getting the search warrant, going into the house, walking the house, seeing Charles's body there. That kills me. They had to wait for their search warrant until like 11:45. And Charles's body's still just there
Just laying there.
until
Yeah,
later in the afternoon when the ME
that's
came and
pretty
got him.
brutal.
I know. Doesn't that just make your stomach hurt?
Yes.
It does me. Just thinking how terrible and sad that is. Yeah. But they talk about him, being there and, on the floor. They talk about the gun. It was his job to make the gun safe, so he had to take the gun and, make sure it was, and cycle it and make sure that there was no more bullets in it. And then, of course, bring it with. They bagged that, of course, and took it into evidence. She asked him if he saw any blood evidence on the gun. He did not. There was a bag of Alex's, a duffel bag, that had the gun case in it and some extra ammunition and things. And there was a health savings account card in the front pocket of it with Alex's name on it. So that just cracked me up. Everywhere Alex went, he did bad.
They just strewn evidence everywhere.
The gun, of course, was registered to Alex. They know that. They talked about the bullet strike on the floor yet again, and he said the bullet in the floor was 100% consistent with Charles being shot while lying on the floor. That's been said a lot of times. He did not attend the autopsy. The rental car was not searched. Lori did have it all day, and it was not searched. One thing that came up today, really between the state asking questions and then Lori, was how poorly they did in this investigation. And that's pretty obvious.
And she asked some questions that she was not wrong about.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
Yep. I hate to be agreeing with this mofro, but yeah. But that was one thing that did come up. And the thing that you have to remember is that Duncan was not the investigator in chief of this case until a ways down the road.
A very key date, June of 2020.
Yeah.
What happened in June of 2020 that the poor jury has heard that date several times and they don't know why.
Yep.
Because of course it was June 9th of 2020 when the police found the kids' bodies on Chad Daybell's property.
Yep. So then they start talking about the iCloud. They talk about what is an iCloud, how does this work, talks about all the, that he had to subpoena the information from the iCloud as well as everything else that he did, and gathered, which is normal. So he said there was a change in communication between Lori and Charles on the iCloud accounts after June 27th, 2019. He said he found multiple text messages between Charles and Lori related to an email. Remember the email? And this is when Charles contacted Chad Daybell and Tammy Daybell after he found the email.
Yeah.
And of course, this is when he really 100% figured out that Lori was having an affair. I think he already knew, but this, I think, just really drove it in and he went, okay, we are all done with this shit. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So they talk about that and about a search warrant on the email account. And now this kills me. The name of the person subscribed to this email address is someone named Karen Walker, which was set up by Lori Vallow. Karen Walker? Lori, are you kidding me?
I spit on that.
I'm disgusted.
You
keep Karen Walker's name out of your filthy mouth.
Do. Will and Grace is one of the funniest shows that ever happened on TV. You leave our Karen Walker alone.
Yeah. Smite for that. Yeah.
Right.
Disgust. Anyhow, so she set that account up when she was back in Houston with Charles back in April. So that email comes in to evidence. Lori objects based on relevance.
Somebody in the chat said, Anastasia Beaverhausen. Another name for Karen Walker. If you don't know who this is, it's all a character from Will and Grace. Beloved.
She is precious. She is a national treasure.
Mm-hmm.
Lori besmirching her name is just too much for me.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. There's another email they bring in that reporting to be from Charles Vallow regarding the Preparing a People conference. Lori was involved in that conference. That email shows that Charles was writing an email to Chad inviting him to come out and write a book. Yeah, sure it was. Of course, that's the email that Charles found when he reached out to Lori and Chad and Tammy. And he sent that to Adam Cox as well.
Mhm.
When Charles found that email, Lori
She's
was...
bad at lying. She's just really
Mhm.
bad at lying.
I think she's just that entitled, you know,
Mhm.
that she's going to do what she's going to do. And she'll lie. She'll drop some attempts to hide her stuff, but she doesn't actually care.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
when Charles found that, Lori was already in Arizona and he was in Houston. And so seeing her at the house that morning, the day he died, that was the first time he'd seen her since all this information came to light for him. He was actively confronting her about having an affair.
Right.
You know, that's why she needed protected
Right.
by everybody that she wanted to cocoon her in their protection and safety. So as we know, Charles had been texting with Adam. He had shared that email with Adam. So they had search warrants on 2 of her iCloud accounts, Lolly Time and Lori for Style. Lolly
Boy,
Time.
have we heard those so many times.
Oh my God.
Ah,
Well, it's just as bad as Alex's. What, Homer G. Maximus?
yes. Well, and Kaylin said, all for a broke guy who looks like a thumb.
Right?
Right? Chad doesn't have an execution date set. He won't for many, many years.
No.
He's in appeal right now.
Mhm. That'll take a long time. Because according to his appellate attorney, there's something like 32 box trucks worth of evidence there. It's going to take him a minute.
Dang it, Duncan almost said voluminous today. He was this close, and then he didn't.
It seemed like it was going to hit the chat, and it's not.
Yeah.
So then he starts talking about text messages between Adam and Charles and the Celebrite report on those. As we know, Charles, when he got to the house on July 11th, he was texting Adam, and then he just stopped responding. But here's the thing. The Celebrite report shows that Adam was sending to Charles those texts in the morning, and he was reading them immediately. And then after a time, around 8 a.m.-ish, they were no longer being read. And then the final message from Adam was read at 12:13 p.m. So we do know
who read it.
that Lori
Charles had been dead for 3 hours or 4 hours.
was in. I'll bet Tylee read it. My thought is that Lori is driving around and doing whatever Lori was doing, and she had Tylee in the passenger seat, and they both knew the code, and that she was skimming that phone. It is very clear, in my opinion, that Lori did everything she could to taint Tylee's opinion of Charles, that Lori did everything she could to keep Tylee on her side and her side only. I think she did everything she could to keep her separate from other members of their family in emotional ways and probably physical ways too. She was keeping Tylee as her little confidant and another protector.
Yeah,
and it worked for a while. Yeah.
Totally agree. Stella, I thought the same thing. Stella said, I would pay to see the jurors' faces when they finally revealed Chad, the affair that caused all of They had to have been like,
this
really?
guy?
That's the guy?
Yeah.
That guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a looker, he is not.
No. So then they talk about it's an exhibit. It's a document showing the extraction report from the iCloud. Alex Cox sent Lori the flight plans for Adam's trip on July 13th. Why did Alex have them? And this was 2 days after Charles died. Apparently, it was sent to Lori prior to Adam's trip concluding. And they think that Adam or Lori, or Alex or Lori, got that info from Charles's phone after he died. So maybe it was Alex going through her phone or through his phone. It doesn't matter. I mean, they were going through Charles's phone. We know that.
Yeah, they definitely were.
Yeah. So we know from 7:49 to 8:36 a.m., 47 minutes passes from the time Charles's phone leaves the site until 911 is called. So Prosecutor Kay asks, did Charles Vallow just lay dead on the floor before Alex Cox called 911? And Duncan says, yes. Thank you.
45 minutes.
Well, a lot of the stuff that is the most blatant stuff has been kind of subtle, I think, in this case. And I get it, she's just laying out all the facts, but it's felt a little subtle. And today, some hard facts were really stressed.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. And I was really glad that she did, so that it
That was
really
important.
comes to light for the jury. Wait a second. He was dead for 45 minutes on the floor while Alex was doing what? Hanging out? Doing nothing?
Cleaning up the crime scene? We don't know.
We don't know.
Yes, we did say that Chad looks like a thumb.
Mm-hmm.
That's been said by many a folk over many years. Looking at that dum-dum.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. We also know that Lori returns at 8:48. And this is all stuff that's not new to anybody, but it's a good reminder to the jury of exactly what this timeline looks like.
Yeah. She left at 7:52. Came back at 8:48.
Then discussing how Adam had been trying to reach Alex ever since he got to Phoenix. That a text message was sent at 3:23 p.m. on July 10th from Adam to Alex. Adam was supposed to stay with Alex, and Alex just ghosted him. He never responded via phone or text. At 6:28 p.m., he sent him another text that Alex ignored.
Alex forever the bumbling criminal. That didn't seem suspicious at all, right?
Right.
What?
Just
you completely ghost him?
I just won't talk to him. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they start bringing in exhibits from the Lori for Style iCloud account. They bring in one from November 17th, 2018, from Chad in Arizona, speaking at Preparing a People. And then so they're establishing right there, this is her picking up with Chad in 2018.
Right.
Then they share some text messages between Lori and Alex. This is when Duncan becomes aware of the name Ned. So here's a text that says, Ned was the name of a dark spirit that had taken over Charles' body. Or this is what he said. And in knowing this, I went through those records looking for mention of a Ned. And he was not disappointed. There was plenty of talk about Ned. So there's a text that Lori sent on February 15th, 2019, that said, Ned was at the temple yesterday looking for you. He thinks you are staying with me. And I'm so curious about that, because do you think she was talking about Charles physically, or was she at the temple and she was channeling Ned's spirit or something? Yeah, I was just curious about that, what that actually meant. But
yeah, I'm not sure. That's interesting.
But then on March 2nd, she sends a text to Alex saying, Ned just came by and Tylee unleashed on him. He came to my house and he went to Summers first. He ran up in a rental car. Because again, Lori is grooming Tylee. Lori is telling Tylee what to say. And let's be real. Tylee was a pissed off teenager.
She was.
In a seriously dysfunctional, fucked up situation.
Oh, so bad.
I am sure Tylee had some behaviors and some opinions and some thoughts. I am sure she did. I think, I just want to say that because it really, really bothers me the way Lori has tried to demonize Tylee front, left, and center in every part of her trials and her cases, that Tylee was the problem. Tylee was a child. She was not the problem. Lori has been the problem. But again, I hate that we just keep hearing this stuff, but here we are. So then there's some other messages between Lori and Alex about Ned. On March 26th, Lori says, "No one has seen him, right? Just talk to him." Alex responds, "Correct. Charles' body is alive. What did you learn?" Lori responds, "Still working on it. We'll call you later." He said there were a lot of records of Lori telling people to call her, but of course there's no recordings of those calls. Then we know at some point the Lollytime email account is created. And that was actually after Charles had contacted Chad and Tammy Daybell. So that's 3 email accounts that we know about from her at this point.
Well, she wasn't very smart because she had burner phones, but then she'd hook them up to an email that was connected to her, and then that's not a burner phone anymore.
And Lollytime, Lori?
Yeah. Really? Like, that was your nickname, Dum-Dum?
It's
Right,
not that
Pam.
sneaky.
Yeah, that was during that time when Lori was hiding from Charles and Tylee was staying with Alex. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So then
also, Rocky said, Lori for style, Lori for trials. Correct. That's what her real email address should be.
For sure. Yeah. So then they start talking about Lori sending photos of the beneficiary form to someone named Bubby. Bubby. The prosecutor had to keep saying that name, and I would bet she was dying inside a little bit.
Probably.
So obviously Duncan wants to know who the hell Bubby is, and I don't think anyone here will be very surprised to find out that it's Chad Daybell.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah. And do you know how they know?
So stupid.
I mean, they had a warrant to search records to find out who Bubby was. One of the reasons they were able to verify that was because of his phone number that he called the funeral home with. That was connected to him.
Chad Daybell? Was it Chad Daybell?
Chad Daybell, or from his old uncle that died. Yeah.
He said it a few different ways. Oh my God.
So on that note, how's prison going, Bubby? Are you having fun?
Yeah. Right.
Duncan says he went through many, many text messages between Lori and Alex. They were saved up in the Lollytime account. He said that Lori gave Alex the new address for the home, and he saw messages leading up to July 11th. Then they talk about being like Nephi. This was on July 9th, and it was stored in the iCloud. So this is where Lori basically is saying, shit's going down this week. Everything's going to come to a head. I've been shown that I'm going to be like Nephi, and so are you. And they talk yet again about what the hell that means. So, of course, he's talking about, what he's learned about Nephi from the Book of Mormon and his battle with Laban, and, that Nephi was able to kill for a good reason, essentially.
God said it was okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On the night of July 8th, Lori texts Alex, and this is the whole text. "Getting sleepy. I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next few days. Mel, too. She can't go to Utah. They are planking," I think she meant planning, "some kind of intervention. Lots to do. Thank you for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you." And that's where it's at.
Yeah.
So then they go to lunch, come back from lunch, and the judge says he's got a draft of jury instructions to go over later, and they come back to Detective Duncan on the stand. There are immediately tech issues that take a little while to take care of with the projector. Apparently, if you turn the projector off, it doesn't really like to come back on. But
high quality tech in that courtroom, like everywhere else.
Right. So they finally get that straightened out. So they talk about, the fact that they It's just a reminder that they're talking about the text messages from July 9th about Nephi. And then they bring up a new report from some messages from July 10th. There's messages between Alex and Lori about meeting up for lunch with Mel. The Mel they're talking about at the time is Melanie Pulowski. Lori invites Alex over to her house. There are no text messages between Lori and Alex on July 11th. You know, because they're together doing the murderings.
Yeah.
Then on July 13th, Lori
They were
texts
real careful not to text.
that day.
He's dead. Oh, good.
Right, yeah.
You know, they texted
Pretty much.
literally everything else.
Call 911 yet? No. More time. Yeah.
Right.
On July 13th, Lori texts Alex, "Need you. Adam is freaking out." Oh, why was Adam freaking out? Maybe it's because he just learned that Charles is dead.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened. He learns that Charles is dead, and yes, he's freaking out because he knows damn well what's gone down here.
He sure does. And no one in his family had bothered to tell him.
Yep, they kept it from him. On August 12th, Lori texts Alex at Social Security. They point out that there's lots of texts that pass between them during this period that they aren't sharing because they're not relevant to the case. On September 3rd, Lori texts Alex, "Bad news on our brother." Alex responds, "What's that?" Lori replies, "Z." Just Z. Letter Z.
Yeah.
What do you think that means? This bitch, early on, has claimed that she has never used the word zombie, ever. Maybe other people have used the word zombie, but she has never used that word. Only she was texting it, but she's only using a Z. Okay.
Super stealth.
Sure,
Except
Jan.
that's not like a real common letter to start a word with, lady.
Mm-hmm. So Alex responds, "Really, when is that?" And Lori says, "As of early January." Oh, I see. Okay, so Adam's been a zombie for more than 6 months now. 8 months. Alex, that explains his interest in Charles. Oh, sure, because who would care about Charles at all unless they were a zombie?
Right?
Lori says Ned recruited him shortly after. That is why. And then something super curious. He's a part of the 24. Alex responds, "That makes sense. Wow." And then she starts talking about more zombies. More sad news. Guess who the final Z of the 24 is? Alex says, "Pops or Brandon?" Lori says, "Zach." Then, nope, think of Judas, who loved me completely and then turned against me. Alex asks Lori when this happened. She says, about the time he turned. Makes sense. He being dedicated to Brandon and Ned. Alex says, "So February?" And Lori says, "Yep." Alex says, "How did Zach die, or was he forced out?" Lori says, "It's crazy, I know, but it's sad and true. Now we know all 24. And then she says, "Forced out, I think."
24.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Forced out, I think. And Alex said with his anxiety, he wasn't strong enough to fight back. And Lori says, 24. Now, 24 is a number we've not heard before in this, in all of this. Once in a while, we actually see evidence that we haven't seen before, and this was one of them.
I mean, this literally implies a hit list of 24 people.
Mm-hmm.
Because the zombies all had to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, the Storm has written us a little song.
Oh.
You put a Nephi in and you pull some loin fire out. You put a zombie in and you try to cast it out. You do the Looney Lori and you turn yourself around. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. Beautiful, Storm. Beautiful.
Excellent work.
Zach is Lori's nephew, Adam's son.
Adam's son, yep. Zach lived with them for a time, with Lori and Charles. Yeah. So the thing is, so I had to go do some searching because I'm like, 24, where did that number come from?
Right?
So I
I've never heard that.
cross-referenced it to the Bible and to the Book of Mormon. I didn't come up with anything that I thought was worthwhile. That tells me that this was probably a Chad prophecy.
That's what I think too.
Mm-hmm.
There were going to be 24 zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Right,
Zach
'cause
the
I'm like,
last one because his name starts with Z?
I don't
I
know.
just think that's absolutely terrifying to think that there were 24 people on their list of zombies.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I think we can name quite a lot of them. Can we name all 24? I
No way.
doubt it.
No way. Yep.
I bet we can name 15, but we can't
Maybe
name 24.
24. Who all was
Who
it?
else was going
Yeah.
down?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty wild. Yeah.
Yikes.
Hi, Allison. Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 24. Dumbfounded. Was there a 24-man hit list somewhere? Because I don't think we saw that.
Right.
We've never
I
seen
don't
that
think
in
we did.
evidence. Yeah.
No. But that was really interesting that that number came out in this
Yeah.
trial.
Yeah.
Those
And sometimes with
crazy
these guys,
idiots.
stuff like that
Jesus.
is significant. You can track it back to, a Mormon belief or a biblical belief, but I'm not seeing it. So, anyway, pretty interesting. So then they bring in some text messages between Summer and Lori on July 10th. Remember, July 10th, this is the day before Charles dies. So Summer, or Sum in Lori's phone, texts Lori and says, "Can you talk?" And then says, "Mom is in the car with Adam and Zach," I think that's supposed to say Zach, "on the way home from Sky Harbor." Then she wanted to know if she should comfort him as a preemptive strike, and I wasn't sure if that was supposed to say confront. I told her no, just to collect info. And then Summer
I think it had
sends
to mean
confront,
'cause
right?
that
She
comfort
just had
makes no
some
sense.
typos. Yeah. So then she sends a text from Mimi. That's Grandma. "Adam thinks Melanie left for Utah today because that's the last he knew. I just left it that way." So if anyone didn't think that Summer and Janice weren't involved in shielding Lori here, they were. Now, hindsight's 2020, and I know that there has been a lot of regret, at least on Summer's part, for her actions involving in this. But yes, they were drinking her Kool-Aid, at least to some degree. They were shielding her from her brother, who was coming to town because things were very wrong in her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, very dodgy, agree. It grosses me out to see this yet again.
Yeah. Well, you remember that gross interview they did? Where they both had so fucking much makeup on, I don't know how they could hold their heads up. And then just the fake bullshit. Oh, it was so obviously fake.
Lori would never do anything terrible. Those kids are safe. She's just protecting them. How did they fall so hard for the narrative that everybody was out to get Lori?
Right. Right.
Especially knowing what they knew about what happened in the summer. How?
Yeah.
How were they not at least a little suspicious at that point? A little worried?
Right. How were they not worried to shit about Tylee and JJ?
I mean, Janice flat out lied and said that she'd had an hour-long FaceTime with JJ long after JJ was dead. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. I'll never not wonder how they fell for this or why they were so willing to. But again, Lori was making herself out to be this victim in danger and everyone needed to protect her. And people were buying it.
Yeah.
Then we talk a little about Melanie Boudreau. Melanie, of course, is Lori's niece. Melanie is the daughter of Lori's deceased sister, her sister Stacy. And Melanie, when her mother died, Lori's sister, there was a lot of contention between Melanie's dad and Lori's family, and there was a lot of fighting back and forth, and they didn't really have anything to do with Melanie for quite a few years. And then when she was able to show back up in their family when she was a little older, Lori really took her under her wing and they were very close. Melanie is very lucky she wasn't charged. I agree with that in
Honestly, it's probably because
every
she's so
case.
damn dumb,
Mm-hmm.
frankly. Just to listen to her, she might not have been sharp
Gosh.
enough to pick up what was happening.
The girl is hapless, without a
Ugh,
doubt. Yeah.
boy. Yeah.
So,
Right, Victoria, why do you need protecting if you're a translated mortal? Aren't
right.
you immortal or am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Why do you?
Indeed. So they talk a little bit about messages between Melanie and Lori. Lori texts her on July 9th and says, I need to talk to you ASAP. I'll call you in 5, finding out what to do. Melanie says, Kay, I took the kids to the temple. They're chasing the bunnies. I'm wondering how often all these trips to the temple were actually not into the temple, but onto the temple grounds.
Right?
It
They're
doesn't make
just
sense to me. Like
chasing
Lori
the
has
bunnies.
these. Right. Well, and there's just a lot of times where Lori's like, oh, I'm going to go to the temple and have lunch and do this. Well, a session at the temple takes hours.
Right.
I'm starting to
And
think
you
she
can't
wasn't.
take your kids in with you.
No,
They don't go
definitely
in.
no. Absolutely not. Yeah. I just wonder how many of these trips to the temple were actually not doing sessions, but just going to the temple itself, like to the grounds. I don't know.
Which could
I was
be. I
just thinking
mean,
about that today.
Mormon temples are always set up with a big garden around them, and people are encouraged to come and walk and pray and meditate and whatever
Yeah.
on those grounds
Mm-hmm.
until, they lock the gates up at night. 'Cause you don't want any homeless doing that.
Right. Well, and
Not when you're a
potentially at the
Mormon.
visitor center as well.
Yeah.
You do scan your card or your recommend at the temple. Yeah, Victoria. And
But only if you
in
go inside.
right. And in Lori's trial, they did show some scans of times that she and Chad were at the temple, one of the temples in Arizona together. So yes, kind of. Yeah. But again, if she was just there, like not doing temple work and really going in, then no, she wouldn't have scanned anything probably.
No. Well, and if the kids were outside, so they must have had bunnies on the property, and so the kids are chasing the bunnies. Like, it's like going to a park.
Yeah. But also, when Lori says finding out what to do, and she's, we've seen some other texts where she's saying to Alex, that she's gathering information or she's finding out. That's coming from Chad. This was all her going back to Chad and saying, this is happening or that's happening. And what does God want us to do? These were directives that were being sent to her from Chad.
Right.
Or via phone calls. So then she sends a message to Melanie and says, you can't go tomorrow. So Melanie was supposed to be going to Utah. Brandon's parents live in Utah, so I don't know if this was a family thing, but at any rate, she was supposed to be going to Utah. And Lori really didn't want her to. So she said, you can't go tomorrow. It's a setup for both of us. Still on the phone finding out the details. Again, that's from Chad.
Yeah. But how is it a setup for Melanie? It's not.
Right. But she's trying to make
Melanie's
Melanie
dumb
feel
and listens to everything.
unsafe.
Yeah. Definitely.
She's trying really hard to make Melanie feel unsafe. Melanie responds, okay. Lori replies, they'll have an elaborate plan. I'll call you soon. And then Melanie says she can take all of the kids and defend herself. Honey, I doubt it, but I don't think you could defend yourself out of a paper bag, but okay.
No. A wet paper bag even. No.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And
That's a good point, Jamie, that they can go into you can go into the celestial room without doing a session. And we know some of those shenanigans
that's
went
true.
on where they met
Yeah.
and they made up their own ordinances and did their own stuff that wasn't actually sanctioned by the Mormon Church.
Yeah. So maybe it was more of that. I'm so confused about all the trips to the temple. It's so weird.
Yeah, it is.
But this is all weird. So trying to make sense of nonsensical again. So Lori tells her again she can't go. Lori says it's coming to a head. This week will change everything. Melanie, probably why I felt sick about going. So then, yeah, this is where she says she back to the Melanie messages, because Melanie too was going to the temple every single day. And so she says she can pretend to be sick, but we'll go to the gym and the temple and lunch instead. So then at 2:07, Melanie texts, so today doesn't really matter. I have the kids. I should probably be sick again tomorrow, ? And Lori says, I think so, but I think they are moving their plans to tomorrow, so they will still try to get rid of you. Get rid of you. She was trying to make Melanie think that her life was in danger or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Because it never was.
No.
Unless she landed on the list of 24 at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't think she did.
Then there's some text back and forth about Melanie wanting to go to a wedding. And Lori saying, I know, baby. I'm so sorry. This is important to your mission, though, even though I know it's hard to just sit there. Her mission.
Yeah. Well, remember, I mean, Melanie got to a point where she was referring to Lori and Chad as mom and dad.
Yes. Yep.
So she was very sucked in.
Yep. So then she asked Lori, she said she's been to the gym and asked Lori if she wants to meet for lunch. So she agrees. Melanie says Brandon has been there the whole time. This is the process of Melanie, or of, this is while Melanie's marriage is falling apart as well. Then Lori tells Melanie maybe she can go to the wedding the night of the 11th, but she needs her there in the morning, but maybe in the evening she can go. So then they text back and forth some more. Melanie's pretending to be sick as a distraction for Brandon. She says that she's packing and on the move and asks Lori, will you clear me? Lori says, sure, I'll work on you now. That's an energy work thing. She says, do you want to come over for a blessing? Melanie says, sure, I can, but is Charles coming? Is Al there? Lori says, Alex is there and Charles will be coming over in the morning. I didn't realize during this time how spun up she had Melanie.
Yeah, she really did. She had her scared and convinced. Lori is very good at sucking people in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And convincing them of a whole lot of bullshit.
Mm-hmm. So Melanie had a mission, and Melanie was in danger of being eliminated.
Jesus Christ, man. Wow.
On July 11th, Melanie tells Lori that Zach is here. He just acted like he was coming over to get his mail. He told Brandon, oh, hey, Adam is in town. Brandon acted like he didn't know. I asked if he was moving in with Adam, and he says he doesn't know yet. And then she sent another message saying, I can fly out at 9 p.m. tonight and be back Saturday afternoon. Those were texts that were sent after Charles was shot. So they're just moving on with their mission and their plan.
Just moving on with the plan. Not like anybody important died in their family and they needed to take care of that and grieve.
Mm-hmm.
None of them gave a flying fuck.
Nope.
By the way, someone commented we swear too much, and I apologize, but it is my favorite hobby.
We'll do our best.
No, we won't.
No.
I will continue swearing as much as I fucking want. Honestly, sorry, but
it is what it is.
I don't allow those kinds of restrictions anymore. That's why I left the Mormons.
True. So the prosecution was talking about Duncan about looking through the text messages, about having to figure out who people were. As we know, he learned that Bubby or Bubba, both, was Chad Daybell. Not every text message saves in the cloud. So he also had to look at phone records to see if there were missing records. He said there were text messages between Chad's phone and Lori's phone on July 11th and the surrounding dates. He said the iCloud didn't save the content of those messages, so we don't know what was said, but we know they were texting. Isn't that disappointing?
Yeah, it is.
This is where bad police work happened. Yeah.
One of many places.
Yep. That is where it happens. There is a lot of ways that bad police work happened in this case, and the fact that the day it happened, they didn't get a hold of Lori's phone.
Or Alex's.
Or Alex's.
What the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh.
they just took what he said as gospel. They really did. They didn't even check anything.
It's a miracle they did as much police work as they did do,
I
because
know.
a lot of key things did not happen. So
Because a lot of
disappointing
this
because
investigation went back after on June 20th, in June 2020. Then they went back to investigate stuff, but some things were just lost.
yeah. Yep. So we know that the day that Charles died, Lori had a phone call with Chad at 5:42 that lasted for 30 minutes. At 7 p.m., there was another call that lasted 11 minutes. At 7:54, there was another call that was over 13 minutes. Very disappointing that those email or those text messages don't exist, but
Yeah. It
so
sure is.
then the state asks Duncan if he noticed a romantic relationship between Chad and Lori in their messages, and he confirms that yes. And then she asks, did Chad write a romantic story about Lori and himself that he texted and emailed her? And we all died a little inside for poor Duncan, who had to do this again. He said he did. Trina wanted to know if there were other names for them, and he confirms it's the James and Elena story. Oh, dear
I recall
God.
it was James and Elena. Gross.
And there we go again with James and Elena. Now, she was like, all right, well, we don't have to read it. And I'm sure Duncan's like, thank God. I can't do this to myself again. Yeah.
Right.
This is the man who had to say on the stand during Chad's trial that the storm they were referring to is Chad Daybell's penis.
Yes, that was, oy. And yes, Stephanie, yeah, the loin to loin, cheek to cheek and loin to loin.
Oh, yes,
that
he
did
did
read.
have to say that today.
These people are so fucking weird.
Cheek to cheek and loin to loin. Dear God.
First of all,
Yep.
I don't even know how do you do that. If you're cheek to cheek, how are you also? I don't know. I can't understand the mechanics of that, but weird, gross, stupid.
Yeah. Awful. They also talk about some of the other names they had for each other. When Chad was referred to as Raphael and Lori was Lily. There was that. We know that Chad starts talking about how, in a text, how much Raphael is deeply, crazily, madly in love with Lily. So, I mean, they do a little to set the foundation of their affair. It wasn't a lot, but it was probably enough for the jury in this case.
I mean, there were plenty of just gross text messages. I miss you the most. Stupid stuff like that. And you're like, are you 12? Are you 12 years old?
Very much. On July 14th, Chad messages Lori about clearing the Houston house to remove the darkness he caused. This is 3 days after Charles was murdered. Then the messages about affirmations of love and cheek to cheek and loin to loin happen. And then, this cracked me up. She asked where Chad was living at the time. He was in Idaho. Duncan says the messages continued until Chad said he needed a shower. God.
Nobody wanted to hear that.
No one.
Absolutely no one.
No one ever. And then we talk about the text between Lori and Chad and the life insurance, where she's saying, of course, that she's not going to get the life insurance, but that she'll get Social Security. So the state says, so now that Charles is dead, there's a very open phone relationship between Lori and Chad. And Duncan replies, yes. Duncan found a Melanie2 in the contacts and linked that number of Melanie2 in Lori's iCloud to guess who? Again, Chad Daybell. Yeah.
People have no imagination.
And the photo on Melanie2 was Chad's.
Yeah. Ooh, that was a real surprise.
So Chad
How
and Melanie...
sneaky.
Sneaky. So Chad and Melanie2 are sending lots of text messages back and forth, and they talk about the life insurance. Melanie2 sends a message to Lori that says, I took a photo with Alan Osmond for Mark. We see the photo with Alan Osmond because, Mormons love the Osmonds. And then on July 18th, Chad and Lori are texting back and forth about the beneficiary. Lori says, "It's a spear through my heart. Who do you think he changed it to, Brandon or Kay?" Chad asks if she can tell who gets the money. She says she might be able to check when she gets his computer on Sunday. He suggests that maybe the beneficiary was forged. He says you should have a good paper trail to prove it. And then Chad says, "I love you. This is terrible. Probably another step in bringing down the Gadiantons, especially Brandon." So she wants to know who the Gadiantons are. Duncan doesn't know. The Gadiantons are robbers from the Book of Mormon. They're Book of Mormon bad guys.
He really did not do his due diligence in the Book of Mormon research.
No.
And that kind of pissed me off because, I mean, if you knew who the Gadiantons are, they're the super baddies.
Yeah.
It's just more referencing of these people like they're horrible, terrible, criminal, violent people who they have to get rid of and take them down.
Yeah.
But you're not going to know that unless you grew up a Mormon kid.
Right. I mean, that term, super familiar. Yeah, but everyone else, of course, wouldn't know. But again, lack of research on Duncan's part.
Right,
Indeed.
Victoria said, "You had 5 years, dude." Right?
Yeah.
Like, really? That is not a hard one to find.
No.
And he fucked up on the Nephi research, too.
Yes, he did.
And there is a really key piece of evidence that proves that Nephi thing that they did not show in this trial.
Yeah.
Or I should say play in this trial. There's audio that confirms that's what Lori was referring to, and they didn't play it. It was in her trial.
Mm-hmm. So Chad says it will be interesting to see if it got changed after he got 2 bullets in his chest. Yeah. Cool, Chad. Lori said, "I don't think it could have. You can't change it after the death date. They would review that." So Lori says she thinks Kay probably is the beneficiary. She's going to shower and give Chad a blessing.
Ew.
Yeah, more of that. I don't want to hear any more about these blessing showers.
No.
Or shower blessings.
No one wants to know. Jonna says, "My mom used to say Donnie Osmond was prettier than Marie." That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I just was never a fan. I didn't grow up a big Osmond fan.
So then they share proof of their wedding in Hawaii. Then they share a photo of Chad with Alan Osmond, in case anyone wanted to know.
That's when the jury got to see what she did all this shit for. Was that dumbass?
It was for him. I'm sure the jury was like, "Wait a second. This guy?" Yeah. They show the wedding ceremony contract for Lori and Chad. And that's it. That's it for the state. So then Lori comes up on cross. Man, she comes up with attitude out of the gate.
Yeah. Big attitude.
She
was rude as hell.
immediately. Yes, she was. She hits Duncan hard instantly on when he became the case agent and who was the prior case agent. And as it's already been explained a couple of times, Detective Moffat was the case agent. He got a promotion. He passed it off to Duncan. That's just what happened. I mean, there's nothing that exciting about it. That's all that happened.
And let's be honest, they weren't really investigating shit until the kids' bodies were found.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he became the case agent in June of 2020.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, because they found Tylee and JJ and they had already exhumed Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
So they went, "Oh, we have fucked up," at that point.
For sure. Yeah. Yep. So she wants to know what he did differently than Moffat when he took over the case, and he says nothing really. He just reviewed what Moffat had done and continued to spend time investigating. She starts talking to him about what time he got to the scene, what was going on. They had a wild exchange. First of all, Lori kept saying, "I'm confused," and asking him something. So there's some objections from the state because, again, narrative. And the judge is like, just ask the question.
Over and over.
Right. Yeah. Over and over. And then she wants to know, she makes a comment, really, because a lot of what she said today was a comment, not a question, but she makes a comment about Charles being taken away in an ambulance. And Duncan's like, he wasn't taken away in an ambulance. And she was just sure that yes, he was. She was like, yes, I'm confused,
Take dead bodies in the ambulance.
Yeah, and he's like, no,
That's
he was
the
taken
medical examiner.
by the ME in the medical examiner's van. And she was so, I think, truly confused about that. I was surprised. Where did she get that in her head that Charles was taken away by an ambulance?
Right? Because she was sure. I know, that was really weird.
I
But
thought
she
so,
wasn't
too.
there when they took Charles's body from the scene.
Yeah.
So that was just an assumption on her part, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of objections during Lori's testimony, a lot, because she just keeps asking questions, and if she doesn't get the answer she wants, she just keeps asking it, keeps hammering him, or just asking the same thing over and over again to try and make it look worse, I guess. She wants to know if they all left the scene by 4:30. Duncan says yes, that some may have stayed and typed notes in their car, but the search warrant was complete between 4:30 and 4:45. She asks about them having a walkthrough with Alex. He was present for that, as well as some other people. She wants to know if a body camera was worn. Well, Detective Werther was wearing a body cam, but it malfunctioned and didn't record. I'm not that surprised at this point.
Right? These guys.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, man. When
But
that
at the
happened, why didn't
time,
they get somebody else over there with a body cam on?
it was probably just a fluke that Werther had one on at all, because in 2019, the detectives in Chandler weren't required to wear a body cam.
Right.
And now they are. But
excuse me. Remember, he was just shadowing that day.
yes,
And that's probably why he did have a body cam
it
on.
probably is why he did. Yep. So she asked a lot of questions about the walkthrough that there's objections to based on hearsay, and asked and answered. Then she wants to know who was interviewed and tested in the case. Lori wants to know if he knew who was interviewed and what was tested in the case as far as evidence. She wants to know about the bat being tested for fingerprints. We've already heard about that the results were inconclusive. She wants to know about the bat being swabbed for DNA and sent to the lab. And he confirms that the bat was never tested. And she wants to know why not. She really hammers on this. Basically,
he's also that Lori thinks that DNA comes from blood. Because she kept including blood in that, like, that's only one source of DNA.
Yeah, but yes, she does think that. In fact, she misspoke at one point and wanted to know if Alex's blood was tested for DNA.
Yes, she did. Yeah, so you could really hear in some of what she was saying. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about.
No. So he's trying to justify for her why they didn't look for DNA on the bat. Frankly, why didn't they look for DNA on the bat? I agree with that. Why?
I do, but his point was valid. That bat was in the house. Charles had been in the house. Alex was in the house. It was Tylee's bat. Lori was in the house. Finding DNA on it was not evidence of anything because it didn't tell you when that DNA got on the bat.
It's true, but if Alex's DNA was on the barrel of the bat, who claimed he got hit in the head with the bat, that might have said something, but...
It might have. And they didn't even test it for blood. They looked at it, didn't see blood, and went, okay, there's no blood.
There's no blood.
They couldn't have been microscopic, though.
Right. Well, and they could have luminoled the bat, and she hit him hard on that one, too. Why didn't they luminol the bat? We looked, we didn't see blood, so we didn't luminol it. Yeah, well, in a better investigation, that would have been done.
Spray luminol across the entire house. She got real big on the luminol thing, like she was really saying something.
The problem with that is...
They didn't do their due diligence.
Yeah. But the problem with that is
she is pissed. They fucked up.
They didn't live there that long. And there could have been other, reasons luminol would have showed up in that house that had nothing to do with this. So it's hard. It's hard because there are holes in this case, and she's not wrong about that. But
I don't like agreeing with her, but yeah.
So she says,
lady did talk about the DNA a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Lori says, when you're doing an investigation, are you not trying to figure out what happened? And he says, yes. So then she wants to know whose responsibility it would have been to get the bat tested. And he says it would have been him or Moffat. So she keeps hammering on that for a while, and they finally move on from the bat. There's no answer as to why it didn't get tested, except for that they just didn't think it needed to be. That's what they have. Then she wants to know why Charles's shirt wasn't tested and the planking from the floor that they pulled up wasn't tested. Okay, Lori, tested for what?
Right. She just says tested as though that means something specific. And there are a gajillion forensic tests that could have been done on any of those things.
Yeah. Tested for what? Tested for the shirt to see if it would cause the bullet hole to strike on the floor? We've been through that about 1,000 times.
Right. I mean, those bullet holes were in his body as well as his shirt. The strike on the floor, the bullet matched the spot and the location. Like, come on. They did test it with their eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Laurie. Yes, Laurie said, I'm a member of the church and the story of Nephi is very common. It's the first chapter of the first book of Nephi. Everybody knows about Nephi and his brothers and Laban. Right? Yeah. She's trying to get all tricky and this kind of happens later on. Gets all, scripture power with Duncan. And
it doesn't work because dumb Duncan doesn't even know there's more than one Nephi.
Anything. No.
Come on, dude.
Or there's multiple books of Nephi. But yeah,
he Googled it and then he asked some Mormons. That is not evidence, buddy.
No.
Not evidence.
It's not enough, but true. No. I mean, it's anybody who knows the story of Nephi, agree, Laurie. This isn't that hard to see. Yeah.
But you know what else is evidence? Is a recording, and we have it. It's in an old episode where Lori was talking about her experience. She was referencing Joe Ryan, but she talked about how it's possible for God to tell you that it's okay to kill someone if they're a bad guy.
Yep.
It fits with the Nephi thing perfectly, and I'm surprised they didn't bring it in. I don't know why they didn't.
It's right. And it's her addressing a room of people. It was like kind of like a fireside, but it looked like it was in someone's home.
Like a testimony sort of thing.
Yeah. And she's talking about how badly she wanted to kill Joe Ryan. And that God told her it would be okay to kill Joe Ryan. Yeah. Joe Ryan died an unattended
Not
death.
long after that. Yeah.
And lay dead in his apartment for a few weeks before anybody knew he was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's referencing that same scripture. She is.
Yep.
They could have used that for corroboration.
Yep.
I'm surprised, right? Maybe it'll be in the closing. I don't know. It would be good if it were.
Yep.
It wouldn't be hard to confirm that it was in fact Lori. We've all had to listen to her yap this entire trial.
Yep.
And it's the recording of her speaking.
Yep. Yeah, that one is a pretty...
That was an oversight, I felt like.
God told her she could kill Joe Ryan? Yeah.
Yeah. A terrible husband. Yeah. Sound familiar to anyone?
Yep. So then they talk a little bit more about... They talk about Alex's phone and about the fact that they didn't do any Cellbrite, and it's a Cellbrite extraction from Alex's phone.
Because they didn't take it from him.
No. Lori says, wouldn't that be crucial information that the police department didn't bother to take? And Duncan, some of this stuff is pretty indefensible. He's just kind of like, it didn't happen. Don't know what to tell you,
And part of it for him is that those decisions were made when he was not the case agent, so it's not his fault. But she pointed out that they just tested the gun in March. So couldn't some of these other things have been done when he took it on? And the truth is, yes, they could have. Not Alex's phone, though. That's gone.
Yeah. Yep. So they go through that and Alex's phone a little bit more, and there's just one thing that Duncan says, though, is that a lot of things are in the iCloud accounts. And so, having the phones is important, but it's not as important as you might think because they're able to get a lot from the iClouds, which is true and not true at the same time. It's
right.
That's something, but it's certainly not everything.
Yeah. GSI, no, she didn't say that in her cross. We're saying that was presented as evidence in her Idaho trial. It was a recording of her talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was presented in the Idaho trial, and we don't know why it wasn't presented in this one.
Mm-hmm.
That happened when she lived in Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were people on the witness list of her trial that corroborated it, that were there when she did
Were
the
there.
recording.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I think
Melanie
Melanie
Gibb.
Gibb was there. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Melanie Pulowski was there too. If memory serves, maybe not. Laurie, I had the same thought. She said, I'm hoping that somebody on that jury is a Mormon or knows a Mormon, which I wouldn't doubt
Right.
because I used to live in Phoenix East Side where Mesa is in Gilbert. Yeah, tons of Mormons there, right?
Right.
I agree. I had the same thought. I really hope there's at least one LDS person on that jury that can be like, yeah,
Because, I mean, anybody in the know knows
absolutely.
that if you
Yeah,
say the story of Nephi, you know exactly what that story is.
definitely you do. Yeah.
Is prosecutor Mormon? No,
I don't think
I
so.
don't think
Yeah.
so. Duncan isn't either.
No, clearly. He's
He
about
didn't
as
even know what
Mormon
the
as
Gadiantons are. Well, there were 4 Nephis.
right? No, he's about as Mormon as John Pryor. Remember how John Pryor pronounced so many
Maroney?
things wrong? Maroney.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was hilarious.
Or what did he keep calling Relief Society?
Oh,
Something different. It was funny. Yeah,
it
he
was
didn't
like
know.
the women's society or something like that.
Oh, it might have been. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that today, that he had a lot of things that he said wrong that were just funny as hell. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh, Gina says that they have 3 temples. No.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of Mormons in this area.
Hmm. Yeah, there are. So then they talk more about the walkthrough at the house. They take a break. And when they come back, before the jury comes in, the judge admonishes Lori again about her behavior. He tells her she can't ask the officer to testify about what other officers wrote or said in their reports. But what she was asking him is if he's read everything or watched everything. Have you watched every interview? Have you read every report? No, he has not.
He said no.
Yeah,
Why not, dummy?
this is the guy in charge. And no, he hasn't.
Yeah.
Not
'Cause
great.
she was all hammering so hard on Summer's interview, Barry Cox's interview,
Mhm.
Janice's interview, which, first of all, they all lie their asses off, and he knew it,
Mhm.
and they weren't present for this murder. But why would you not at least familiarize yourself with all of it?
Mm-hmm. For sure. So she's asked about all of these interviews, and basically he was like, I did not watch or listen to their interviews, but none of them were there. None of them were there when this happened. So he's just acting like they were pretty irrelevant to his investigation.
Because they were all protecting Lori and Alex anyway.
Yeah.
So they were lying their heads off.
Yeah. So then she says she had switched to a different person as well. When she came back from lunch or from the break, it was Hour. I guess Hour is me and Alex. Did you interview our parents? Did the only person in our family who got information was the estranged brother in our family who didn't know what was going on himself? That
We
was
did a bunch of-
weird.
Yeah. And it was a bunch of testifying. So you only interviewed the estranged brother who doesn't know anything about anyone, you know? And the
Mhm.
prosecutor's like, objection.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Because obviously Adam was estranged for a real good reason.
Mhm.
from
And
these
Adam was
Lillys.
connected to Charles, the victim. So he wants to know, is this your normal protocol? Or she says, is this your normal protocol just to talk to one witness and not the others? And Duncan says no. But again, he's saying those guys weren't witnesses. In my mind, they weren't there. They didn't see what happened. They weren't witnesses.
Because they just investigated it like it was a self-defense shooting. I mean, that is just the reality. That is what they did. They did not look beyond that until they found out the kids were dead.
Yep.
They just didn't.
Well, they had started peaking a little bit more after the Brandon Boudreaux shooting, but they didn't put it all together for, a year.
They sure didn't.
Then she wants to know how many interviews Summer has had with the police department. He doesn't know. So she says more than 2, and he says, I don't know. If you catch one thing Lori does is if you don't know the answer, she'll start making a suggestion and try and make you say something.
Yeah.
because she's very
She spent
manipulative.
that time.
So you got to be
Yeah.
smart. And if you don't know, say you don't know. But so he doesn't know how many interviews Summer had. He was there for one phone conversation. So,
Yeah.
That's about all he could say about that. So this is where she starts getting all cagey about the Book of Mormon.
Oh, yeah.
So she asks if he's formed a conclusion and sticks to it. Well, first she asks if he formed a conclusion and sticks to it and only investigates the things that lead to it, and he says no. Then she starts hitting on the story of Nephi and wants to know what research he did. So he says he Googled who Nephi was and what Nephi stood for, and then he's also talked to other members of the LDS Church to tell him about Nephi. And he says basically they all tell the same story about him and the killing of Laban, who was a king, King Laban. Lori asks Duncan if he's aware that there are many stories of Nephi in multiple books in the Book of Mormon. No, he does not know
25.
that. Yes.
That's true.
So then she asks him if he has read the Book of Mormon. He says no. So she says, you just ask people about Nephi? And he says, well, he did an internet search first and then spoke to some church members. So she asks how long he did his research. She says he doesn't know. That's when she says there's 25 stories about Nephi in the Book of Mormon, and there are 4 different prophets named Nephi in the Book of Mormon. The state tries to object
every Mormon
here.
he asked
Told him the
said
same thing.
The Laban story. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's well known.
Yeah. So he tries to, the state tries to object at this point, and the judge overrules her and says the question can be answered. Basically, he says no, he does not know how many Nephis are in the Book of Mormon. Then she wants to know if he has knowledge that her text message about Nephi was similar to an order to kill. He says he's not. She wants to know if he knows that Alex was a stand-up comedian and always joking. He says he knows he was a stand-up comedian. She says Alex was often joking and half of his text messages were just jokes. Yeah, all those text messages about Ned, really?
I don't think so.
Are you joking too?
I don't know if we can call Alex a stand-up comedian. He
Yeah.
did a few sets of stand-up comedy, but going so far as calling him a stand-up comedian, I think is a bit far.
That's a big stretch, yeah.
And if you all are wondering, you keep asking, Sandy's looking out the window. My neighbor's outside screaming, looking for his dog because his dog is always missing.
Oh, no.
Because they do a real shit job of, keeping track of him.
Which is scary on your road. Terrifying.
I know. He got hit one time. They thought he was dead for sure. Then he just jumped up and ran off, and he was totally fine.
Oh, good Lord. People.
It was several years ago.
So then she wants to know who's on his team and who's working on this case right now. Lori, who the hell do you think's working on this case right now? It's at trial. No one is.
It's
So
done.
obviously, Duncan says, well, me. That's it.
Remember me, the case agent? I'm sitting right here.
Yeah. For sure. He said, back in the day, Duncan and Coons were both working on it, and Detective Werther also did some work. And that's pretty much it. So she asks him if he feels like he sought out facts and investigated the case. He says yes. She asks if he's confident in that. He says he is. She asks him if he met with Detective Moffat to review the case when Moffat got promoted. Duncan says before he left, Moffat dropped the case notebook on his desk and went on his way. Obviously. Yeah.
Real flattering. Yeah. That was some of his answers. I was like, dude.
Yeah.
You got to dress this up a little bit. This sounds like shit.
Right. So then she starts hitting him about the luminol and the bat. We've already talked about that. Then she asks him, you've charged me with a crime, correct? And he says, I have not. He said, we passed along an investigation. Yeah, the state of Arizona charged you, Lori, not Duncan.
Yeah, at the recommendation of a grand jury.
And then again asks why these tests weren't done that she thought should have been done. And she has nothing further. So then Trina follows up, or Prosecutor Kay follows up with talking about the luminol, talking a little bit more about the The iCloud accounts, says that what we've seen in court is just a grain of what he has gone through on the iCloud accounts. Well, yeah, because in the other trials, he was on the stand for literally days going through all of the iCloud accounts. They showed very little in this trial, actually.
Yeah, there's tons more, but
Yeah.
But they had to be careful because they can't reveal the Idaho cases.
Yep.
They're so constrained in this one.
Yeah.
That's why the police needed to have done a way better job of the investigation.
Indeed. And then they talk again about, the fact that Charles was taken by the ME, never by ambulance. They talk about that Janice and Barry and Summer were never at the scene, and actually Summer was headed out of town when this all happened.
Right.
They talk a little bit more about investigating the stuff in the iCloud. He says initially he didn't understand the talk about Ned and had to talk to some others like Serena Sharp for some details about what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Then they talk more about Nephi. Again, he says he talked to LDS church members when they spoke about Nephi, and that Adam also talked to him about Nephi. And what Adam said was pretty much what everybody else said, that he was commanded to kill a wicked man.
Right. And he said that in court when he was interviewed.
Yeah.
Or, what I mean, on the stand.
Then the prosecutor asks if the physical scene itself was inconsistent with what was originally told to police. He says it was. She asked if it required additional research into all the different iCloud, cell phone records, etc. He says it did. He says he spent months going through the iCloud data, and she has no more questions. So,
well, there was one. Lori said, "Why didn't you interview me?" And he said, "I couldn't." And that's because she was in jail in Idaho under charges for the other murders. And so he did not have access to her, which I thought was interesting. I wondered if the jury caught that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean I couldn't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Then the judge asks the question there was a question from a juror. So the judge asks the question. They were regarding the pictures on Alex's phone sent to Lori. They wanted to know what time was on the phone. They said 2:13. That was the photo of Charles and Adam messaging the flight info that somebody, took from Charles's phone and sent to Lori, which obviously Alex was involved in. So the state, at this point, this is at 4 p.m., the state says they have no further witnesses and they rest. And this is where we cut off for the day, and then we played that for you earlier, but this is where Lori decides she too is resting. So
all those subpoenas were accidental, I guess? Every single one?
Apparently. Yeah.
I mean, they're all going new phone who dis anyway. It's not like very few people have actually even been served because none of them want to come testify on her behalf.
No, they don't want anything to do with it. Yep. So yes, she did. She rested. They both rested.
Oh.
So what's going to happen now? There is a hearing in the morning to discuss jury instructions. Again, we don't know if it's going to be streamed. If it is, we'll stream it. It won't be that interesting, but it kind of wraps this up. So we'll stream it if it's there. And then we're going to come back at 3 p.m. tomorrow Mountain Time, which is our regular streaming time on Thursdays when we're not in trial. And we're going to bring you the story of the autistic teenager that was gunned down in Idaho, or here in Idaho, in Pocatello, Idaho, last week.
By the police.
Mm-hmm. There needs to be a lot of conversation about that, and a lot of you guys have been asking us to cover it, and I keep promising you we will, but there's only so many of us, much of us to go around.
Gathering info, yeah.
Yes, but yes, Star. So here's the thing: Lori did rest today, but she didn't rest in front of the jury. The state tried to get the judge to bring the jury back in so that she could rest in front of the jury, and he did not. He told her that until she rests in front of the jury, she can change her mind. Now, tomorrow's jury instructions, and he told her, if you're going to change your mind, I need to know, because it changes the jury instructions. And she said she'd let him know. Then they made this plan to meet in the morning to lay out the jury instructions, though it's possible tomorrow that we would learn that. She doesn't have to do it tomorrow. Until she hasn't, until she's rested in front of the jury, she could still pull a switcheroo and change her mind on Monday morning. The judge isn't going to like that very much, but it is her right. So she could do that. Is she going to?
I think she just loves the drama of holding it over everyone.
Yep.
I mean, if her consulting counsel has any sway on her at all, she won't.
Yeah.
But
no, the jury won't
I
be there
don't think they
tomorrow.
will.
Yeah, the jury doesn't have to come back till Monday. So she can't rest in front of the jury tomorrow. Yeah.
No. And if she testifies, how that works is that her consulting attorney asks her questions that she wrote. So it'll be crazy as shit.
Oh, man. Whoever has to ask those questions.
Not fun.
Not
right,
fun.
Joelle?
Yeah.
I wonder if she's going to wuss out at this point. Because she came on real strong at first and then has backed off a fair amount. So I don't know, man, but she would love the drama of it. I really think at this point that she doesn't really care if she's convicted or not.
Yep.
She had ulterior motives for this.
No. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And can we just say, I am so grateful that none of Tylee's friends have to take the stand. The fact that monster wanted to put Tylee's childhood friends on the stand to have to testify makes me sick.
Right.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yep. Absolutely. Right? But did any of us know that she had a $2 million life insurance policy? Did she
Charles
know?
Was wearing a $200 bamboo golf shirt.
Those were the key points that she pulled out of this trial.
She wanted the world to know that she was that important, I guess. Who cares, man?
Yeah. Well, it's true, Jennifer, and maybe that's why she kind of has flailed on her defense. She's been very busy advocating for all those women on death row.
I know. All those women that are not on death row at all.
No,
So
right?
full of shit. They're in jail, Lori. They have not been convicted of anything yet.
They're not on death row. No. So there you go. That's what we've got. So, I mean, obviously, the question of the hour is, did the state prove their case? What do you guys think? Are you nervous? Are you convinced?
I think it's in there. It's just, can Prosecutor K pull it out and put it in an excellent timeline? Like, can she make concise, simple sense of it all? Because I think that the stuff is there. Right, Irene, you dumb bitch? I know they all want to say dumb bitch. But I think it's in there. I really do. I just think, a lot of it came today.
Yeah.
But it's got to be like extra good on laying things out and indicating you've heard a lot of things, you've heard a lot of names, you've heard a lot of stuff. These are the things that matter in this case. This is how we know there was a conspiracy to kill Charles Vallow.
Yep. Let's
This
condense
is the
it right
timeline
here.
of what actually happened. Don't forget, Charles lay dead on the floor for 45 minutes before Alex called 911. Those kinds of things. Like, it's gotta be really concise. And if she can do that, then I'm okay. But I'm not 100% convinced.
Yeah.
Not 100%.
It super sucks that the 911 call didn't make it in, because it's very obvious in that call that Alex is lying and that he's pretending to do CPR when he clearly was not. And if the jury had seen that and heard that, I think, again, that would have been something for them to be like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah. But it did not make it in. So,
right. She does need the Lindsay Blake School of Closing or the Rob Wood School of Closing, because they both did beautifully with that.
Rob's closing and Lori's trial. Oh
my God, it was so good. It was so
good. He was a mic drop. Absolutely.
Totally.
Please, Prosecutor K, have some manipulatives, have a poster, have something that helps tie the timeline. Like, come on, man.
Put it
and
in
Kate
posters,
definitely
put it in a big, nice PowerPoint, something.
Yeah.
so that
But
they
yes,
can understand
Prosecutor Kay does not have the team Lindsay Blake did at all. She's on her
No.
own with a para. That's all
Yeah.
she's got. So yes, there's a lot more that we thought should have made it in, or maybe evidence that we've seen from years ago that's, I don't know how much time she's had for this case, you know?
Right. Right.
It's
I know.
very
There's
different than
a
how
lot of
Idaho
questions
did
there.
it. Yeah. Yep. So there we go. I mean, that's what we know. She says her closing will take around an hour. Lori said hers will be much shorter. Lori seemed pretty defeated to me today towards the end of the
She
day.
Well,
But,
she tried to get the case thrown out because the prosecution didn't prove their case. And the judge was
yes,
like,
she did call for a
pretty sure they did.
Article
Yeah.
20. Yeah. Right.
And so when he
They have provided no
denied
evidence
that-
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When he denied it, she went, okay. It was not.
She did.
It was not confident. No.
No, not at all. No, but I'll say with Idaho, I will always be a little bit cautious and be like, I don't know, what do you think? You know, but with Idaho, I felt like, oh yeah, I mean, there was so
Slam
much
dunk.
evidence. Right.
Right.
I think the evidence is weaker in this one, but I mean, the innuendos are there. One thing I wish we have heard more about is what conspiracy is,
Yes.
what the legal terminology is, why we would find
That's going to
conspiracy.
be in the jury instructions, though. That's one
It
key
will.
element of the jury instructions is
Yeah.
what makes up a conspiracy, and it's not what Lori says is a conspiracy.
No,
what
it is
the law
not.
says is a conspiracy.
She's very confused. Yeah. Can we do a poll? I don't know where to set up a poll these days. Maybe we could over in Discord. I don't know if you can
Yeah,
set
we
up a
could.
poll in Discord. Probably.
I think you can.
Yeah. Yep. I loved the judge. I thought he was great. He
Oh.
cracked me up today. I was thinking I would love to see how he deals with unruly teenager versus how he deals with Lori, because I suspect it's the same.
Yeah, I think so.
That same soft voice that's like, what's even happening here? You know?
Yeah.
I think he's been great. I think the prosecutor's done the best she could with what she had. I'm not really sure if she had a bigger team, if she'd had. I mean,
I'm sure there's been a part of her that wanted to wring those cops' necks. Really.
well, I'm sure. I mean, this is
Like,
what she's
what the
had to
hell?
defend.
This is what you're handing me?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there was plenty of her thinking, why didn't these things get done? For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And don't forget, of course, that this is just numero uno. I mean, jury selection starts at the end of May, and Brandon Boudreau's trial is supposed to start, I believe, on June 2nd. So
It is. Yeah.
coming right up. It's going to be fast, too. They laid out 5 weeks for this trial. And, you know, we said in the beginning, there's no way in the world it's going to last that long. And clearly it hasn't. Thank goodness. Honestly, I don't want to sit through any more of this. Trials are fun to be together on, and the daily stream is fun to be everybody in the stream together and stuff. But my gosh,
Yeah. We can't
I'm
do
done
that.
with Lori. Done with Lori. So that's what we've got. So again, if there's a stream tomorrow, we'll go ahead and stream it. We'll be back tomorrow at 3:00 to talk about Victor Perez.
Yes, we will.
So thank you all very much for being here. Welcome to all of our new folks as well. It's always fun to have a few new people in the house. And it sounds like next week after there'll be closing statements on Monday. I'm sure they'll kick it straight to the jury then. I would imagine the jury's back by Tuesday. We have a conviction or an answer at any rate. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yep. So we'll kind of push that direction. All righty, guys. Well, this has been yet another production of the True Crime Squad. Thanks for being here.
Bye, everybody.
Season 6, we're back again. Kristi and Katie, your crime time friends. Stories, justice, laughs collide. True Crime Squad, come join the ride. Grab the clues, let's take a stand. For victims' voices, hand in hand. True Crime Squad, it's time to shine. Season 6, your turn, your time. True Crime Squad, where justice meets hilarity.